Welcome to Beneath the Long Man's Feet. I have here today a story for you. It's a story called The Last Druid. I hope you like it. And our story is set many years ago, at a time when the Romans came over to these lands of Albion, and with their sworn aim was to wipe out the Druid religion, the Druid faith of this land, and impose their own will on the people of Albion. And we all know the terrible events that happened at places like Anglesey, and how the Druids were wiped out by the Romans. But not all Druids were wiped out. Some were not there. And our hero, is Gort, was one of those people. He should have been there, though. He was given leave to leave his brothers for a while to visit a sick relative. And while he was there, the terrible events at Anglesey happened, and his friends were wiped out by the Romans. And Gort was racked with guilt for the fact that he wasn't there with his brothers, and he wasn't there when they needed him the most. And he felt that without them, without their teachings, he could no longer be part of this world. And so he made it his aim to leave this world and join his brothers in the land of the ever-living ones. And so he found himself in a vale, in a place we now call Oxfordshire. And he had made himself a poison of such things as the yew and henbane and belladonna and all other natural poisons that he knew of from his training. But as he raised the cup to his lips to take a drink, he saw something out of the corner of his eye. And coming towards him was a figure on horseback. Now the horse was the most amazing white he had ever seen. It almost shone. And its ears and its eyes, he noticed, were a pinky red. Now Gort knew from his training that this was an animal, a messenger from the other world. But magnificent as this horse was, what caught his eye even more was the rider. For the rider was truly the most beautiful woman Gort had ever seen. She had a green dress with gold brocade on it. She had golden blonde hair flowing in the gentle breeze. But the thing he noticed about her most were her eyes. They were of the brightest green. They were emerald, and they shone. And not only that, they seemed to search into the very soul of Gort. The woman dismounted and came up to Gort, and Gort realized that, of course, this was Rhiannon, one of his goddesses, standing there in front of him. "Hail, Gort," said Rhiannon. "I understand you want to leave this world and join me and my brothers and sisters and the ever-living ones. You want to see your brothers again. Is that right?" "Yes," said Gort. "There is no point me being in this world where people don't care about my religion anymore." "Well, Gort," said Rhiannon, "I have a proposition for you. A bargain. I will take you to the land of the ever-living ones without the need for any painful poisons. But I have a condition, because once you cross that veil with me, you can never return. Unlike me and my brothers and sisters, you will spend your time on the other side of the veil, and you will not be able to come back. So, here's what I want you to do first. Spend a year and a day exploring your world one last time. And in a year and a day, meet me back here, and we will walk hand in hand into the land of the ever-living ones. Do we have a bargain?" Well, Gort nodded. "Obviously, you don't disagree with the goddess, do you?" "Yes, my lady," he said. That's okay." He didn't really want to spend any more time in this world, but he couldn't really disagree with the goddess. "Excellent," said Rhiannon. "To make your year and a day a little bit easier, take this bag. Whenever you need it, you will find in it the finest baked bread, so that you may never hunger. And here, take this drinking horn. Whenever you need it, this will be full of the clearest water, the sweetest ale, or the most clear, sweetest mead you could ever want, so that you may never thirst. And furthermore, you may use my horse for the year. She is a magical horse, obviously, and she will take you to places in your world much quicker than any horse of your world could ever do." but take care of her because she is special to me. Well, yes, of course, my lady, said Gort. He was a little bit stunned by this turn of events, needless to say. But before he could say anything else, Rhiannon turned, and she was gone, back into the hills behind him. Gort put his hand into the bag, and he drew out the softest, most fragrant bread he had ever smelt. And it tasted as good as it smelt. It was wonderful. And to wash it down, he lifted the horn to his lips and took a long draught, and yes, indeed, there in the horn was the sweetest, tastiest mead he had ever had. So good, in fact, that he thought he would tarry a while and try it out a bit longer. But then he caught sight of the horse's eyes staring at him. For the horse had eyes similar to Rhiannon's. They bored into the very depth of his soul and reminded him of his bargain. So reluctantly, Gort put the horn in the bag and climbed upon the horse and whispered to her. And their journey began. And together they rode to the tops of the highest hills, where Gort joined in with the song of the winds, and he learnt the dances of the breeze. He watched 100 sunrises and just as many sunsets from the top of the hills. He watched 13 full moons rise, and he lay under a blanket of stars under 13 dark moons. He rode to the springs and rivers and lakes and sacred wells of this land. He rode to the beaches where the sand meets the sea, in those liminal places that are barriers between this world and the next. And he rode to the rocky shores where he marvelled as Manawydan's white horses crashed against those rocky shores. And he rode into the deepest forests, and he marvelled at the beauty of the trees, and he remembered their stories, and he learnt new stories of the trees. And he watched the crane and the wolf and the bear, for they were all there in those days. And he marvelled as stags rutted for the favour of their does. And he watched all manner of birds, from the mighty eagle and the falcon and the hawk soaring high in the sky, to the smaller wren and the robin and the song thrush, the skylark, the magpie, every bird imaginable, and he learnt their songs and their stories. And he watched bees dance on bud to bud. And he watched flowers open their face to the new day sun. And he watched the dew form on fresh blades of grass. And it wasn't just the beauty of the world around him that he learnt and drank in and knew about. He needed to tell people about this. So where it was safe to do so, he would talk to people in small secluded spaces, and he would tell them the stories of the land and of the goddesses and the gods. And he would also learn new stories from the people that he met and tell those stories to the next people that he met. He kept the word of the god and the goddess alive in this world as much as he could. And it was great. He had loved it. He never hungered, he never thirsted, and the horse was just the most wonderful form of transport. So a year and a day passed, and Gort was depressed, it has to be said. He was not happy. He did not want to leave this land. He did not want to stop telling the stories and the songs of this, his home world. But a bargain is a bargain, and so he stood there, head bowed and downcast, a year and a day, to the day he met Rhiannon. And sure enough, she appeared to him at that moment that he first saw her a year and a day ago. "Gort," she said, "you have kept your end of the bargain. Come, take my hand, and I will take you to the land of the ever-living ones. You will see your brothers, and you can meet my brothers and my sisters again." Gort just shook his head and looked down. "Gort," said Rhiannon, "what is wrong? Why do you renege on our bargain now?" Gort looked up, trembling. "Because, let's face it, you don't say no to a goddess, do you?" And he tried to explain how he needed to stay here and learn more stories of this land, and how he needed to tell the stories, and if he left this land there would be one less person around who could tell the stories of the old ways. He expected Rhiannon to be a bit cross at breaking their bargain, but when he looked at her, she had a wide smile across her face. "Gort," she said, "my brothers and my sisters and I, we knew we could rely on you. We knew you would never let us down. Now, I must take my horse, I'm afraid, because I need her in the other world. But you stay in this world, continuing your journey as best you can. But you may keep the bag, and you may keep the horn, so you may never thirst and you may never hunger. And when your time is here for real, I and my brothers and my sisters in the land of the ever-living ones will all welcome you with open arms and love. But unto that time, Gort, go well, and I bid you hail, farewell." And with that, she got on her horse and she rode into the hills and disappeared. Gort was kind of stunned. He suddenly realised what he was supposed to be doing in this land, and to remind him so that he would never forget, and to remind anybody else who might be watching at a later date where he was. First thing he did was get a pick and a shovel, and he carved the figure of a fine prancing white horse into the hills, into those Oxfordshire hills, to remind him of that wonderful horse and how she had taken him to these wonderful places and taught him so much. That horse is still there, isn't it? You go to Wiltshire, you can still see the horse that Gort carved all those years ago. And it came to pass eventually that Gort, 80 or something, he didn't keep count of the years, passed from this world naturally. And as they promised, Rhiannon and the brothers and sisters were there welcoming him with open arms into their world. And there he met his brother druids who he hadn't seen for so long, and there he still lives in the land of the ever-living ones, to the best of my knowledge. Now, we fast forward to the current day, and there are those who say that the old ways are now making a comeback. But I say that's rubbish, because they've never been away. Thanks to people like Gort and bards like him throughout the seasons, the old ways have always been with us, and they're still with us. Thank you for listening to my tale. I hope you enjoyed it. Do tune in again for more stories and tales, poems, next time. But for now, take care, guys.